So last week online I was sharing about an adventure that a friend of mine and I had in the one-room schoolhouse. It was actually the same schoolhouse that my grandma had gone to when she was little. Now when I was growing up, our school was so big we had to have 3 whole rooms for the 5 different grades that we had there. There was one for kindergarten, there was one for 1st and 2nd grade, and then there was another for 3rd and 4th grade. And so my 1st and my 2nd grade teacher was Mrs. Yoder. And Mrs. Yoder was probably one of my favorite teachers up to that point. But I still managed to land in detention with 2 other friends who we had to stay in during recess. So we had to clean up the classroom instead of going outside and playing with our friends and enjoying the sunny day that everyone else got to enjoy. And that wasn't even that big of a deal. I mean, I don't even remember what we had done. I think we were probably just talking when we shouldn't have. But we did a good job of cleaning up. And Mrs. Yoder, when we were done, she said, "Oh, you guys have done such a good job. You are like my 3 musketeers." Now what I heard was, "Wow, you guys have done such a good job. You have earned a 3 Musketeers. A 3 Musketeers is this wonderful chocolate bar. It's got a bit of chocolate nougat in the middle and caramel, and it's delicious." And so there was this jar of 3 Musketeers on Mrs. Yoder's desk, and they were only given out on special occasions. So I went and I took my reward, and it tasted good. And then Mrs. Yoder, she found this empty wrapper at my desk, and she told me that I had stolen that candy bar, and I earned detention all over again. You know, the human mind is really a funny thing because we're really good at hearing what we want to hear, even when it's not what's actually said. Now, I'm not entirely clear on whether this is a part of our human nature or our fallen nature, but it's certainly a part of our nature. And God is well aware of that. And so today we're going to be taking a look at how God works through this type of thinking with 2 disciples who encountered Jesus on the road to Emmaus. Go ahead and turn to Luke chapter 24. Verses 13 through 32. That very day, 2 of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and they were talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What is this conversation that you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood still, looking sad. And then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And so they went on and they told Jesus all about what they had seen and heard about him. And later on, Luke tells us, they drew near to the village to which they were going, and he, Jesus, acted as if he were going further, but they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is now far spent." So he went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took the bread and blessed and broke it and gave it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. And he vanished from their sight, and they said to each other, "Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road, while he opened to us the Scriptures?" There's a few things that I want to make sure that you understand about this passage, about this encounter between these 2 disciples. They aren't a part of the 12, or really it's 11 now at this point. It's just 2 disciples, like you and me, 2 guys trying to follow Jesus. And you can almost hear their disappointment, the disillusionment, when they share with this stranger about what has happened to Jesus. And they had hoped, and notice we're using the past tense here, what they had hoped that he would do for their nation, for their movement. And they don't say it here, but really, if you read between the lines, what they had hoped he would do for them. Something really interesting is going on here with the tenses as well. In the Greek, Luke uses what's called a divine imperative. Their eyes are kept from recognizing Jesus by none other than God himself. And in the same way, their eyes were opened divinely. And so we have two very different forces at work here that are keeping these men from recognizing Jesus. There's a natural force. These men haven't accepted the possibility that Jesus could rise from the dead. They haven't been able to reconcile the truth that they've already heard with the truth that they think that they've lived. And I think a lot of us have been there before. We recognize on some level that there are times in our lives when we can't handle the truth. We haven't allowed ourselves to truly hear and understand what is being said to us. Now, there's also a supernatural component, though, in which God has a particular message to share with these two disciples, and so he is intervening and preventing them from recognizing Jesus. If we're going to accept the text as it's written here, it isn't a particular thing that Jesus does then that allows these men to recognize him, but it is first the supernatural intervention of God that opens up the possibility for the natural recognition that follows. And believe it or not, it's the same way today. God teaches us using supernatural intervention of his Holy Spirit, both concealing and revealing spiritual truth. And so also, he works through natural exposition of his word and the development of our natural abilities to discern and see his work in the world around us. So the first question that we're going to discuss this week: why does God choose to instruct his followers through revelation of the very things that he has concealed? Now, how have you seen God work this way in your own life? I'd love it if you could share your experience, your own experience on the road to Emmaus. Go ahead and leave a comment below or send me an email, weston@gracepoint.ca. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much, and God bless.